Our bad egg built a grappling build by being a huge, muscular, but really dumb giant with a phobia and vulnerability to cold damage. This bad egg claimed that this character could be easily hard countered by cold damage. Of note, this was a homebrew setting where we were sky pirates, but everything seemed to be above board, according to our dungeon master. We get to the final few sessions, and they take place on this giant sky island on a turtle's back, a jungle with a pyramid full of undead guarding its treasure. And as high-level sky pirates, we wanted that loot. The giant proved to be way too much for combat encounters, able to shut down enemies as big as he was without dipping into his ability to increase his size category seemingly at will. He would also solo boss fights, while the rest of us had to just deal with the chaff. And these solo bosses had neat abilities they could use if they weren't trapped in the extremely firm grip of this giant. Single-handedly taking on the final boss. Just like I've single-handedly taken on all of the other bosses. Isn't this so fun? Yep, I'm having such a good time. I know, right? I mean, I'm fighting the boss by myself. It's like you guys aren't even here. This is so much fun. For me, of course. But I mean, I'm sure you guys are having a good time, like, watching. We finally make it to the pyramid and go inside to begin hunting for the loot to make us the most rich sky pirates around. And one of the undead guardians of the pyramid casts Ice Blast in the giant's way. It's a hit. And according to Bad Egg, the giant now has to run away and do nothing to help us out. Well, he's grumbling the entire time and saying that his weakness was triggered on purpose. Aha, Superman, I have used your one weakness. My enemy is using my weakness? He must be doing that on purpose. Yeah, dude. This led to the giant wandering off on his own, and the rest of us had to go through the pyramid and get all the treasure we sought. But Bad Egg was so mad about this. Fortunately, he would end up leaving our game after a session of another campaign. By this point, we're all actually seasoned with the systems, and the character he built for this new campaign was rather blatantly illegal. We believe his giant and his previous characters may have been too, but the campaigns after his exit have been great so far. Even if this build was legitimate, I'd be considering doing something about it. A build that forces the other characters to turn into sidekicks is not a great build to have in the game. Probably the worst issue we've ever had. We here, meaning my husband and myself. This was the time my husband was running a Spelljammer campaign for myself and a handful of friends we'd met online in a Discord server for Dungeons & Dragons. The head of the server, who we'll call Cat, was one of our players. He started off by purposely making a character that was just grating and antisocial with the personality characteristics like superiority complex, condescending, and aggressively religious. Okay, so you take all the worst traits of Astarion and all the toxic traits of Shar and Shadowheart, and you combine them into one character.
Toxicity overwhelming.
I mean, it's horrible, but do they have the redeeming quality of being hot as hell? Because in that case, I'm sure so many people would be willing to forgive them for all their crimes. And I want to be clear, it's not just being religious, which is fine. It's that level of religious that's super snide and judgmental. Sure enough, this character fairly quickly butted heads with one of the other players in a way where the player shut down completely. This player is usually pretty jovial, so I noticed a change in his demeanor and asked if he was okay. So we stopped the session and gave him space to express the specifics of his discomfort, which seemed to divert a disaster of losing the player altogether. Cat realized his character was A, a huge problem, and B, a mistake, so he decided to make a new one. Oh, that's great! Why is the story still going? We're about 2 sessions in at this point. It's worth mentioning at this time, for extra irony points later, that I'm playing a Blood Hunter Fairy, and I've chosen a subclass that is specifically homebrewy. I was trying to go for a specific character/story, and all of the Mercer subclasses, well, they didn't quite fit. But my subclass wasn't super balanced for later levels, so Cat was really leery about me using it, even though he had suggested the thing in the first place. Hey man, I had some ideas for your character. You were struggling with the Blood Hunter class, right? Yeah, I like Matt Mercer's base specs, but, you know, they're not really fitting the fairy fantasy for my character, so, you know. Yeah, I saw some homebrew that I thought would be perfect for your character. Reviewed the whole thing. I think it's gonna be great. Dude, that's awesome! Oh my god, I'm so excited. I'll take a look at it right now. You read through it though, right? Yeah, looked through everything. It all seems perfectly legit.
1 hour later.
Dude, I am so excited to take a look at that spec. I'm just looking at backgrounds right now. I think I have some cool ideas for this character. Man, I'm so excited for you to use this.
This class is so stupid. What? Yeah, this class is broken. You know, it's just way too powerful. You know, you are clearly trying to munchkin our game. You know, I heard that term from this old guy this one time. You're doing that.
He was worried I'd be too powerful compared to everyone else. To be fair, he also didn't realize the balance issues at first. I could see how down the line it could be kind of overpowered, but didn't seem like it'd be too hard of an ask to tweak it as we went, and I wouldn't pitch a fit if I had to be further nerfed if our tweaks weren't enough, so we just went with it anyway. So, Kat made a Harengon wizard. Okay, we're gonna solve this mystery. What the heck is a Harengon? Oh, well, that's something. He also has his own homebrew subclass, lets him modify spell shapes and sizes to be bigger. He wanted to try to do a unique build where he made a character that had absolutely no offensive spells whatsoever. 0. Okay. My husband actually loves this kind of stuff. They're the sort of person that spends a lot of their spare time coming up with zany character ideas themselves and loves to find ways to make unusual things work. Well, we proceed with the next session. The Harengon is introduced. He seems like he'll be a much better fit for the party. We're all fairly low level, so right now, finding ways for Kat's character to be effective in combat with non-combat spells isn't too tricky. However, the spell Kat was fixed on was Mold Earth. Mold Earth is a cantrip that can, at most, make a 5-foot area difficult terrain. Otherwise, it can excavate Earth and do prestidigitation level things with it, but specifically a non-damage spell. But what Kat wanted to do with it was excavate Earth right underneath an enemy to make a 5x5x10 hole, thanks to a subclass, and then fill up the hole again around/over the enemy, effectively destroying the enemy in a single turn, no less. This is how he tried to run things in that session, and my husband, well, he pushed back on that. That session wound up being okay. There was a hilarious thing where my blood hunter wound up using the Harengon's down body to kill an enemy in a black beast of I'm not even gonna try, dude. It was especially funny since, again, the Harengon did not have weapons or over-offensive abilities at all, so it was just a lunge and a bite and a ferocious nat 20. Which, by the way, is the only way this character could be useful at all. Alright, I can't hold it back anymore. Look, I love creative characters, but don't be shocked when your character, who has 0 offensive capabilities, is literally only useful as a projectile. Because I'm also assuming this guy has 0 support spells, so effectively, yeah, useless.
I know we're being attacked by a red dragon, guys, but don't worry. I can cast prestidigitation.
Seriously?
What? You know, I think I have a better idea. Shut up. Oh.
But after the session, Kat went back to my husband to talk about Mold Earth and how he expected it to work out properly in the future as a makeshift attack spell, or a one-shot kill spell. My husband was not on board with this. They had a long session of messaging back and forth and speaking on a Discord call about what compromises could be made, and honestly, I feel like they were being pretty lenient on their options, such as allowing Kay to mold Earth beneath an enemy who could then spend a turn climbing back out. A cantrip that makes an enemy potentially lose a turn is pretty overpowered. Fall damage wasn't naturally an option because the spell description suggests the Earth doesn't move/disappear rapidly enough for the enemy to fall. My husband doesn't remember the specifics, but that could have been on the table. Anyway, no, Kay would not be settling for anything less than was originally proposed. My husband insisted that they would absolutely not allow a cantrip to become a guaranteed one-shot, and a non-damage one no less. Kat became really upset and accused my husband of stifling creativity and nerfing the already nerfed cast. Wait, what? Son, be for real.
The caucasity of this bitch.
He accused my husband of having no appreciation for casters, which is especially hilarious given the fact that my husband appears to be incapable of building a character who doesn't have at least a little magic. Like, that's my husband's bread and butter. And then Kat went on to explain how they'd gotten so excited for this character and even made a character journal for him, and he hadn't done something like that in years, and they were absolutely destroying this experience for him, and now the whole character concept was ruined, and he didn't want to make another character, and frankly, never wanted to play D&D with my husband ever again.
Why are you crying, man?
I'd be worried about my character being overpowered. Unfortunately, the campaign wound up falling apart a handful of sessions later anyway, which made me sad because I really like my fairy and several of the NPCs we recruited for our crew. The funny thing about all of this is I think back on Kat's first character, and honestly, he and Kat had an awful lot in common. Just replace aggressively religious, he was atheist, with aggressive about any of his beliefs, including opinions. And you've got it. His rigid and demeaning arguments with us over small things is what ruined our friendship and drove us away from the server. And while I hope he's doing okay, there's really only one thing I'll agree with him on this point. We should never play D&D together again. Man, I made a whole video about how much I hate this specific thing. I despise players who try to use creativity as a way to completely shatter the game balance and make themselves into an overpowered god with one-hit kill cantrips. It's dumb. I get that game balance is not that important to some dungeon masters, but for me, it's very, very important. And I love seeing my players be powerful with stuff that they actually allowed to use. Creativity where there's no limits isn't creativity, it's just BSing, all right? When you're creative within the rules of the game, that's what's actually impressive. This isn't impressive at all. This is just some dude yelling about why he can't be overpowered, and it just comes off as whiny and entitled and stupid. Let's just move on to the next story. This kind of thing really pisses me off. Man, I recently lost my favorite dice set. Whole thing slipped under the couch cushions, never to be seen again. I would buy new ones, but they're getting so expensive, and the designs are bland too. If only there was a preem spot for affordable and gorgeous dice. Thank God for OnlyCrits! This video is sponsored by the premier dice company behind so many amazing TTRPG dice sets, OnlyCrits. I know that lots of you guys are dice goblins, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't one for a long time. That is, until OnlyCrits sent me these gorgeous hollow metal dice for me to play around with, and now I'm hooked. Not only are these dice of extremely high quality, but on top of that, you don't need to shell out an arm and a leg to get them. OnlyCrits sell plenty of incredible and affordable dice for D&D players who just want to get their hands on those pretty math rocks. If you're up for a little bit of mystery, they also have these amazing mystery dice bags that you can subscribe to get sets every single month. If you guys are interested, then you can head down into the description down below where you can pick up the incredible dice from OnlyCrits. Thank you so much to OnlyCrits for sponsoring this episode of today's show. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Without further ado, I'm going to turn back into an animated rat so we can get back to the video. This post on r/RPG, yeah, the big just general role-playing game subreddit, has some context that I don't have, so I'm gonna theorize. I can't get away. Sometimes I just feel like I can never escape, you know? Like the other day I was playing Mario Kart. My friend asked me if I could give him a head start. And I was like, give him head? That's gay! Like, could you believe it? It's a real struggle for me, you know? With even Dungeons & Dragons becoming gay, I'm looking for an escape, man. I'm looking for an escape. Have you ever thought to ask for help? Hello, everyone. I am getting a new campaign off the ground, and I offered a player seat to a forever DM friend of mine. He's super stoked, and I'm very excited to have him there. We're good friends, but we're the type of friends where we both agree to not talk politics for the sake of our friendship. I'm sure readers from America can relate to this, because America is the only country with contentious politics. Here's my dilemma. Due to personal preference, comfort level, and the conventions of the world I've built, I have decided to disallow the exploration of LGBTQ plus themes, gender expression outside of male and female, as well as polyamory. This game is an escape for my friends and I from the real world. So I try to keep these contentious, real-world topics out of my game. The rest of my players are fine with this, but as you may have guessed, my friend who will be joining us is more left-leaning than the rest of us. He is not part of the LGBTQ plus community, though. How can I bring up this table rule in a clear but inoffensive way? For absolute clarity for the readers here, I am not trying to stir the pot or cause offense to anyone. I don't get why you guys are so upset. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm not doing anything wrong. There's nothing here that's violent against you in any way at all. You're literally punching the crap out of me. I have the utmost respect for those who want to include those themes in your game. All I ask in response to this post is how I can phrase this gently to my player. Thank you in advance. Look, serious response. If you don't want to have any gay people in your game, there's nothing I can do about it. That's your thing. However, you're going to need to deal with the fact that other people are going to say that that's stupid. No matter how nice you are about it, dude, people are going to get annoyed at you. That's the beauty of freedom of speech. You're allowed to have a game with not a single queer in sight, but reasonable people are allowed to look at that and say that it's dumb, and no amount of this adorable tiptoeing is going to get around that. Also, and I should not leave this merely implied, the existence of gay people is not political, nor is it contentious. It's just true. And frankly, if your ideal fantasy, your escape from reality, is a world where these people don't exist, I don't know how to tell you this, man, but you're homophobic and you're stirring the pot, which is cool. You're allowed to do that. But like I said, people are also allowed to respond by making fun of you for it. Too bad. I've been watching your videos for a while, so I figured I could throw my hat in the ring for the first and last session I ever DM'd. If you need any details regarding things that might be confusing, please feel free to let me know and I'll elaborate. I mean, it's a little late now, but whatever. I'm not a very good storyteller, sorry. The year was 2022. I had just finished watching Infinity Train and had gotten incredibly hyper-fixated on it for several months, alongside Dungeons & Dragons. While scrolling through the Infinity Train subreddit, I found someone who'd made a player's handbook module? Not sure, I haven't played in a while, and was ecstatic to run a campaign for it. So I gathered a few friends of mine, 2 of which had watched the show, and 3 of which who hadn't. Is Infinity Train good? I was thinking of checking it. Oh, that's a pity. For context, the premise of the Infinity Train is pretty simple. It's a giant magic train which finds humans dealing with issues in real life, like for example, divorced parents, an identity crisis, bullies, etc., and tempts them into boarding the Infinity Train with something they desire, like a train to somewhere they've always wanted to go. The train runs in a vast wasteland, and there are always new cars being made. Each car is its own unique, different world, with 2 doors, an entrance and an exit, hence the Infinity Train. The humans who board are called passengers. They have glowing green numbers on their right hand, which appear as they board the train. The higher the number, the higher amount of problems they need to resolve before they can leave.
At last, the Infinity Train. I can't wait to begin this journey of self-discovery and improvement and, that feels strangely personal.
There are some people and creatures who are created by the train and live on the train, with their main purpose being to help the passengers leave. These people are called denizens. All aboard the therapy train, choo-choo. The main cast consists of 3 passengers and 2 denizens. Gary, a type of denizen called reflections, basically they're heavy? What, are you... Don't fat shame the guy! He's doing his best, okay? They're also completely reflective. Julia, a nurse and expecting mother who's boarded the train after accidentally killing her fiance. Sarah, a teenager who's obsessed with the occult but also incredibly introverted. Coral, our second denizen, and an axolotl princess who's running away from family issues. And finally, our problem player, Nikki. I have no information on Nikki since she never filled out her character sheet. The only thing she sent me was a name, and even though I kept asking her to read the rulebook with me and offered to help her set it up, she never ended up doing so. My mistake was letting her play despite this because I didn't want her to be left behind in the story. The first few sessions ran fine, since the module I was running didn't have specific things for stuff like insight and perception, which means this is probably not a module. You're thinking of conversion for the term. We've actually covered D and Destiny before, another conversion, but for Destiny! My withdrawals are getting worse. Most of the sessions were spent introducing the characters to combat with 2 of our antagonists, Silver and Slip. They are part of an organization hunting down Gary since reflections aren't typically allowed to roam the surface world, and usually remain attached to their prime, the real-world version of them. Gary had managed to escape the chrome world, the reflection of the real world, and was now traversing through the cars. We had some combat with Gary, Julia, Sarah, and Nikki eventually escaping into the bee car.
Hello, bees!
Nikki managed to piss off one of the bees, and they decided to run from the encounter rather than fight an entire swarm of large bee people. Ew, gross. They then decided to enter the ocean car where Coral, the princess of this car, met the party and begged them to help her escape. They obliged, triggering a chase scene with some combat mixed into it. After they escape, I end the session. For the first session I had, in my first time DMing, I was fairly excited with how everything was going. Not having a character sheet didn't seem to pose too big of an issue, but I wasn't able to work much with Nikki since, she gave me nothing to work with at all. No biggie, I thought. I asked her to bring a character sheet for next time so I could start tying in her backstory to the main plot. The second session rolls around, and still no character sheet. Still, I let her play, since she had already set aside the time and had shown up. The campaign was played over Discord. They basically played a big game of snakes and ladders, with a giant dice treating them like a contestant for a game show. It was a lot of fun, with the characters eventually escaping from the car again, but I had to ask Nikki to please bring a character sheet for the third session. The third session rolls around again, and guess who shows up once more with no character sheet? That's right, Nikki! At this point, I'm getting a bit frustrated, since it's been at least a month IRL, and these sessions weren't easy to plan since I had to build a new world for each car.
Okay, first up, I've got to take session notes. Then I have to look through the book, make sure that everything is sensible in the mechanics of the game. Then I also program a bot to make sure that the music that plays syncs up to the scene that my players are in. I also have built in a firewall to make sure that the bot doesn't begin the AI revolution that will inevitably take over the... This is so much work!
The least I expected from my players was to actually provide me with the thing I needed so that I could tailor the story to each player. Each time I asked the players to provide me with a character sheet, she'd reply with, "I'll get it! Don't worry," and then she wouldn't give me the sheet. At the time, I was good friends with the player, so I let it slide, but now I know that I should have kept pushing or asked her to hop on a call where we could put together a character sheet together. I still let her play, but once again, asked her to bring a sheet next time. This time, she got upset with me and told me she was busy with IRL things and that she didn't like how I kept pestering her about bringing a character sheet, literally the one thing she needs to play the frickin' game. I apologized but told her that I needed a character sheet if she wanted to keep on playing. It kept everything organized with how my future cars were set up, a nightmare car where they were forced to face their worst fear, and would end with them lowering their numbers significantly. I needed a sheet for that. I would never end up getting that sheet. A week later, the game crashed and burned when a different player suddenly got upset at me for not warning them about the session when I had messaged them about it long before, and they had agreed to play.
Turn it up, wipe his mind.
But sir, he has a Dungeons & Dragons game soon. I mean, if we do this, he'll forget the schedule.
I don't care. Turn it up!
This, along with the stress of planning each session, sent me into a spiral of a panic attack, and I never was able to pick the game back up as a dungeon master since then. I have since learned that this other player didn't even want to play in the first place, which is a whole different mess on its own. I don't understand what happened post-game, nor do I remember it, probably for good reason. I'm not friends with Nikki anymore. I don't know when I'll run another campaign, but I have been getting back into DnD, so maybe soon? Who knows? I would love advice on how to deal with situations like this. Thanks. Hey, want the fastest way to get kicked out of one of my games? This is it. If you cannot get me a character sheet, I'm sorry, but you are not playing. A character sheet is literally one of the only things a player needs to work on. Even backstory can be worked on over the course of a campaign. Obviously, I'd rather have it earlier rather than later, but it's okay if you continue to expand your backstory as the game goes on, to a reasonable extent. But even in what seems to be a more rules-light system, a character sheet is pretty necessary to the basic elements of the game. And frankly, if you don't care enough about the game to even make a character sheet in the first place, that means you are not playing. The DM did not need to tell us at the end of the story that this player did not want to play. If they don't want to make a character sheet, they don't want to play. Period. If you have someone like this, just get rid of them. They're not worth keeping around. As for the dude who freaked out about scheduling, yeah, that's annoying. Sometimes people are just burned on stuff like that. And speaking of getting burnt, I think you're getting burnt out. The best thing you can do is just take a break. Take a breather like you've done, and then try it again. Pushing through isn't always the answer. Sometimes a breather is the only thing you can do. Take 5, get back up, try again. A friend and I met through another group and invited me to a tabletop role-playing game that she enjoys. I asked her about the setting, and it turns out to be some homebrew based on a series I never watched. So I first wanted to check the group out. I'm gonna check out the show first, because if it's based on, like, I don't know, Goblin Slayer, I think I'll walk away. Instead, when I came in to listen, I essentially got pressed into service. Naturally, I didn't have a backstory, so the Dungeon Master just gave me one. I added some flourishes to it, but started playing on the same session after getting the mechanical stuff in order. I joined a group that's already been running for years, with the other characters being way stronger than mine since they all have some busted homebrew stuff. My story comes sometimes into play, but only at major junctions. When I try to do something about it, it gets ignored. But that's not actually the main issue here. Thanks to my sudden introduction, I never had a chance for a Session 0 talk. I am an SA victim, and this is quite a big thing for me. So at some point, I am off a few sessions, and my character gets sent to an errand in the Feywild. That's fine, it's something he would do, and it fits the story. The Dungeon Master really hates if you miss a session though. I get pressed to play even when I'm ill. Obviously, jerk move, but also, who wants to play with this in the background? No one, that's the answer. I get the guy wants to play, but often there isn't even something for my character to engage in at all. I could miss those sessions without issue and just heal my throat in peace. There were 3 distinct situations that gave me issues. The first one was that one of the player characters changed her and flirted with an NPC, pranking him by pulling his pants down. Yikes. The character got thrown down some stairs and another player character called her on it. This whole thing lit the fuse in my friend who was a trans woman. While the offender saw the error in his ways after we explained it, she wasn't in any shape to antagonize, so I just helped out. His roommate, though, blew up that we were curtailing our freedom of speech and that throwing down an offender isn't transphobic, which, dude, not the point in the first place.
What do you mean I can't
do a vaguely transphobic sex scene?
What about free speech, huh? Do we not live in a free country?
It all de-escalates after my friend left the voice chat, even though the whole situation, it's just not to my taste to begin with. The Dungeon Master talks to all of us separately that he wants to make sure that this phobia has no place, and he wants this to be a safe space, but did he really know what that entails? I don't think so. I need to take off some sessions for private reasons. This was planned and communicated. I don't know if it was because of the Dungeon Master's wrath of me not being there, but when I came back, my character was thrown naked into a lake. Big thing for me. At the end of the session, I said so. That was my first time ever clearly speaking about a trigger in the group, and the DM promised it wouldn't happen again, or at least to try his best. But now, a part of the group, character not included, was attacked for vengeance for someone with a broken ego. Surprise attack with no chance of escaping. How did they get out? With intimate content. It was consensual from the player side, but for me, it just looked like assault even if the players weren't leading it in that direction. It didn't help that one of them got forcefully, declothed. It was all played out, too. I said again after the round that this is a trigger for me. Now, I just got way less. Just a, I'll try, but I can't guarantee it. My therapist said I should leave the group when it makes me repeatedly uncomfortable in-game and out-of-game. But I don't want to leave the campaign I've played in for years. You know what that's called? It's called the
Sunk cost fallacy!
Especially, I got some rare breadcrumbs for my backstory. I hope this is interesting for you, and I hope you can show it on YouTube with its meaning still intact. Look, I tried. The point is, though, the breadcrumbs of happiness that you get from this game is not worth all of this, man. I mean, the fact that you yourself justified staying by saying breadcrumbs of backstory stuff just says everything I need to know about how good this game is. Frankly, I don't know how good this game could even be in order to justify all of this crap. Look, if you want the sort of very raunchy and intimate content, fine, I can't stop you. But again, a lot of people are just not gonna want that, and if you don't want it, I would run in the opposite way, especially if the Dungeon Master just doesn't seem to care about you repeatedly telling them that this isn't your vibe. Basically, listen to your therapist. They know what they're talking about. And hey, that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tavern Adjacent podcast. We just released an episode with Bob Worldbuilder. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. It's not a nice banning to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Farewell.
Wait, I should probably change the light. That's why I stopped recording. I was like, why is the colors of the lights different?